जिदू कृष्णमूर्ति की किताब मैं पढ़ता रहता हूँ। थोड़ी-थोड़ी समझ में आती है, ज़्यादा करके समझ में नहीं आती है। बट व्हेन आई रीड these books, one of the things that I've realized, sir, when fear is instilled in a young person's mind, then that because in the formative years, it's an impressionable mind, the cognitive reasoning is yet developing. That becomes a part of your DNA then. And then when you see the cane, then automatically you recoil. So what you said is very true, that, sometimes fear perhaps is used today in order to get group discipline. But sir, then somewhere does that fear always stay in young people? And in your journey as you were developing, as from grade 8 you spoke about until the time you joined the army, then fear subconsciously remained in your DNA, or it didn't?
You're absolutely right. This is something which is important. I'll take you a stage forward.
Okay.
If I show you a stick
Hmm.
and I kind of put some fear into you, there are two, three things.
Hmm.
When I'm not showing the stick, you will not have that fear.
Correct.
Means whatever you obey, you'll start disobeying that. So in my absence, you will not be the same person. Is that correct? Second thing, if the fear crosses a limit, I will revolt back. And the violent reply would be much higher than a normal. That's why you will find that so many countries, Generation Z is revolting back, because they felt that they were being controlled by the stick, which was not a correct thing. Therefore, what is important is fear should be there just to, if I can say that, harmonize and bring a person to a normal level. Thereafter, the person should grow herself or himself. Oneself should grow. That is what is important. And fear should not be there to even check you, because some kind of peaks are important in life.
Right.
That's what is important.
Very rightly said that some sort of peaks are important, and then the fall also is
Yes.
is equally important in many a way.
Yeah.
But sir, talking about falls, growing up as a child, was there any insecurity that you had, sir? That मैं बहुत मोटा था, sir. So I was about 100, almost close to 100 kgs at one point in time in school. So I always had that insecurity, saying that he's not good looking enough, or he's not appealing enough. Then puberty happened, so automatically.
Yes.
But sir, was there any insecurity growing up as a child, sir?
I'll not call it an insecurity, but a concern.
Okay.
Firstly, as a group, there was always the insecurity that today we should not lose the match. It was insecurity.
Cricket match, sir?
Football, cricket, hockey, depending on what is there. Sometime, let's say when you're going for 100-meter relay race or a jump, you should not lose. That's a kind of a different insecurity. But I was short in height.
Okay.
When you're short in height, of course, in school, luckily our class fellows were said there was no bullying or something. But you always wanted to excel physically because you're short in height. So you wanted to match up with the others. So it was if I can say that, the aim, aspiration to match up with them. So how can you do it? By being physically better. Physically better in sports, in physical activities, in cross country, and so on and so forth. And that's why when I was in school, I used to do in PT display, I was in gymnastics. When I went to India, I was PT blue. When I joined as a commissioned officer, I was a PT gold medalist. So because that insecurity gave me an incentive, an aspiration to do something better.
And insecurity, sir, what you spoke about, that it gave you an aspiration to do better, that is important. But I would also like to say, sometimes the smaller the package, the louder the noise and louder the impacts. And that is what is true with you, and I'm sure our neighbors next door definitely agree. But most teenagers, sir, are presumptuous. When I shared my journey with you earlier as well, that because nobody shows us the mirror. But sir, when somebody shows us the mirror, like even today, I'll be very honest, I have differences with my father sometimes. He'll say that, Rishabh, nahi, aise karna chahiye. And I'm like, but dad, why are you forcing me to do so and so, like this? As a teenager, we are quick to say no, and we're quick to react otherwise. You were one perhaps out of the many who understood through something that has happened to himself. But sometimes even if you fall once or twice or thrice, it doesn't strike you as much. And if somebody tells you saying, देखो गिरते जाओगे और गिरते जाओगे, then you rebel. So what is your thought on when we face such a situation as a teenager?
See, this is what is important, that you have to learn lessons in life. And you should be wise enough to understand you want to learn the lessons in life by following yourself or drawing lessons from somebody else who is following. So that is a choice which you have to make. Not many people do the first one, that they fall, then they learn, they forget about it, then they again continue and do that. So I always feel that we should prepare ourselves by learning from others. That's why it is important. What storytelling, if you remember, India is known for storytelling, word of mouth. And your parents are the ones who always tell you this story. They tell you about the success, the lessons learned, and the failures. So if you imbibe that correctly, you'll always find you learn from others, and inadvertently, if you've done something wrong, you will also learn from your failures also.
One of the most important people that you spoke about, आपने भी बताया, that you should listen to what your parents are saying, and you should listen to their stories such that you don't have the same faults per se. But sir, sometimes relationships with parents, especially growing up, can be very difficult because it is that stage of life where hormones are developing, where you are thinking out of the box, where you want to rebel, like I mentioned earlier. So what was your relationship with your parents, sir?
देखो, रिबल होना अच्छी बात है, बट किसी फ्रेमवर्क में रख के. So During our time, if you remember, there was no competing social media and other sources of information. Today, what happens? The parents are busy. So if a child wants to have a milk, they put Tom and Jerry. If the child wants to question, they say, "Beta, I don't have time, please Google it." But in our time, Google was my mother. So all the civilizational stories, all epics, everything were told by her. Even the stories of any Shivaji and you name a person, she always told these stories. My father was the strongest person in life because he could lift me. So what I'm saying, when you have the role models as your parents and you have 100% trust and faith in them, then the rebellious thing is not there. Because as you grow, their communication starts changing from a child to a friend. And if you are a friend with your parents, I think you will always be with them. For example, there will be questions, counter questions. Parents, like you said, your father says, "Ye is tarika theek nahi hai." There's a different way to look at it. You go to your father, "Father, मैं ऐसे करना चाहता हूँ." You tell me 3 ways which you feel are correct. Your father will say 3 ways. Father, the third person, the option which you have given, I think this is nearly matching. Yeah, what you're saying is right. This is your way of handling your parents. Parents' way of handling child is, "Beta, tell me 3 ways how you're going to do it." Okay, then you nudge child. Okay, this seems better. In this may be challenge, this may be challenge. You can do it, I know, but you can start with this, then start with these two. So what has happened? There's a communication which is not direct, but something where both have converged on a particular point. So what has happened? You have allowed space for the children, for the child to grow. Similarly, my parents always gave me space to grow. They always respected my emotions, my thought process. But it doesn't mean the differences were not there. Differences were there. But today, of course, I don't have my parents. They're no more there. But definitely, I feel that had they been there, I would have liked to discuss more and more with them. I would have loved to talk more and more with them.
And I'm sure your parents are incredibly proud of the man, sir, that you've become. And but sir, when you talk about your parents, sir, at that juncture, बचपन में ऐसे कभी हादसे हुए where there was शरारत थोड़ी ज़्यादा हो गई, या फिर there was a time where there was a conversation that where you rebelled a little too much? Was there any instance like that that took place that you recall, if at all?
शरारत तो बहुत ज़्यादा होती थी. And I'll give you example. My father was mining officer, and some people had come to meet. And thereafter, suddenly, when they were going, I took a fruit and hit it with complete force, and it went inside the vehicle and did a bang. Now the driver had just started the vehicle, and he didn't know what has happened. And they were opening this, everything, and then they just couldn't know. Once they left, after some time, father asked me what had happened. I told him this had happened. He said, "Don't do it next time." I once picked up something from somebody's house. It was when you connect some games and put a diagram, you make it. I picked up and brought it. Father said something in my pocket. He said, "Kya hai?" I said, "This I have brought." He said, "Did you ask them?" "No." "Okay, please go back and give it to them." So my father was something who was always correcting me without making me feel guilty about it. So he gave me a scope for correction and allowed me to correct myself on my own. That is something, if I can say that, kept me that consciously correct and consciously sure that my father trusts me even today, therefore I shall do no wrong.
Your voice is always you maintain the same tone, and the inflection is there, but sometimes it drops when you talk about your father. And I see that you are very fond. You were very fond of your father. Uh, if there is something that you miss most about your father, what is it?
See, your father was the most wise man, has to be. He's a role model for you. In our house, it used to be that he was the first one who came out of the family, not as a rebellious, as a something who could move out. When he started after class 8th, he was studying in a village, and he took some chanas, gram, and with that only, with no money, nothing, he moved to a place called as Satna, which is approximately 3 days walk. He reached there because there some gentleman had told me earlier that if you want to read ahead or study ahead, do come and meet me. That gentleman was out of the town, 2 days without food, anything. He stayed there. Then of course he came. Somebody told him that there's a boy sitting next to the tree. Then he got to him, gave him some food, and then got him admitted in the hostel and said, "Now you have to fend for yourself." So in class 8th, he used to take his own tuition classes and go for the fees. But what is more important, thereafter he made sure that the complete family, everybody gets to read, study. And in my house, it used to be full of all his brothers' system, that is 5 brothers, 3 sisters, and all other cousins, etc. And he was so inclusive, he used to encourage everyone to study and work. So I think he was a role model for my complete village or kutum as such.
So, sir, you grew up in a joint family. Am I correct in understanding?
Partially correct, because he was a mining officer. So after some time when he moved out, the place of posting used to be there. Of course, we brothers and sisters used to be there, but others also used to come and join. And my mother used to make sure that she used to be the last one to have food once everybody has got. And as a military leader, I'm proud to say the leaders eat last.
Leaders eat last. And another line that stays with me, which you have mentioned previously, even in public, is that the success belongs to those people who are in my team and the failure belongs to me. And thoughts such as this is the reason why I wanted to start with you, sir. But mm, taking you back to childhood, you said that you were overconfident at a point. And sir, overconfidence and arrogance ke beech mein there is a very thin line. Today you don a uniform and you need to communicate viewpoints to people who sometimes may not be the easiest in order to deal with. Um, how do you draw the fine line between confidence and arrogance?
This is a very difficult question to answer, because what does it mean? It means you have to keep your mind stable, patient. You have to give space to other, and you have to make sure, okay, it's something like negotiation. You can have an argument or you have a discussion. So when you have an argument, he says something and you give a counter argument. When you have a discussion, he gives out a point. You say, in this point, what is what common for me or good for both of us? That is the difference which lies. So how do I go about it? First thing in the morning is I go in for some kind of a spiritualism, is dhyana. So once you do dhyana, what happens? The whole body gets harmonized. And then it's not you. Then the system which is there, the system which you're representing. Therefore, any kind of a spike from that side or arrogance from that side will not destabilize you, because you've been able to see through it. In morning, you have been able to do 3-4 scenario buildings. When you do this scenario building, it becomes very easy for you to work through, because your desperation for decision making or coming to the conclusion should not be visible. As far as you are concerned, you have come to kind of a measure up what is there, what not. So once it is there, it will not be having overconfidence, it will not be having arrogance. It will be a normal playing level field for both of us. So the other side will not become insecure. They will start slowly trusting you. They will start having faith in you, and they will want you to be part of their team.